Hello, fellow motorcycle adventurers. Piloto Adventures Bob here, going to talk about riding my stock Varg on some Utah single track. My son and I went to an area southeast of Payson, Utah, basically in the Payson Lakes area. This is off of On X Off Road. You can see that it's just marked as single track and hasn't really been recorded. But my son on his app had recorded some of the tracks that we did out in this area. This was great single track area, and I'm going to start out here with a little bit of video. Okay, bikes are fixed. We got the radiator leak problem fixed. We got the rear tire situation fixed. Taking a big ass hook into it. So we just put a hole. The tire was on it. We weren't real happy with. Sam wasn't happy with it at all. So put a different rear tire on it. Gonna be heading off up into this stuff. We'll be sharing the trail with some horses. They leave evidence of their presence. Gotta watch your step. They talk about us marking up the trail. And pretty good view back down there already, back down onto Payson and Utah Lake. Okay, gonna start out showing you some of the single track that we rode in that area. Now please remember, I'm not a content creator and I am not a professional, and I'm not making these videos to make money. This is hopefully to just give you a little bit of perspective on riding the Stark Varg, and also riding in this area just outside of Payson, Utah. My son lives out there, and he is enjoying it. It's an area that I don't live in. I'm from the Midwest, a much different part of the country, so I really enjoy the opportunity when I can to get out there and ride with him. Now I'm riding the 2023 Stark Varg that I won. This is the MX version. This is not the Enduro version. So you got to keep that in mind as you see any images of the bike, and especially how the stock suspension is set up. Now I did mess with the clickers a little bit, trying to soften it up. As you can imagine, for motocross, the bike is set up to be a little more firm for hitting the motocross jumps and that type of terrain on a track. So when riding off-road, it can be just a little bit too stiff. So I worked on softening up the compression both on the forks and on the rear shock. And then also fiddled a little bit with the rebound to try and make it just a little better for these off-road conditions. Go around rocks in the middle of the climb. Now you're going to hear me talking in the background there because obviously the device was recording the conversation I was having with my son, who I am following. He's up ahead of me there. We have the Cena communicators, which are so great. I really enjoy those. It allows the leader to be able to advise of any type of obstacles that may be coming up. And also, while we were out here on these trails, we did run into some other riders, and also ran into some hikers. And wouldn't you know it, from when you saw the first part of it, we ran into those horses and their riders. So it's great he could give me a warning for any of those upcoming things. And also, should I happen to get in a pickle, the Cena communicators allow me to communicate to him so he can stop and potentially maybe even come back and help me out. So you will hear in the background my voice talking, and well, the next thing would be, wow, the device is not even on my helmet. I have mounted on the handlebars of the bike, and you can hear me talking. And you're also going to hear that electric motor on this Dark Varg. Or the chain. I shouldn't say you hear the motor so much, but you kind of hear the motor and you hear the chain, and you basically hear a lot of things that you don't hear on a gas bike. Yeah, I will say, when you're first riding this bike, and this is only my second time on the bike, or actually, sorry, third time. This was a Sunday, and I rode it for a little while on Saturday. Have another video up that talks a little bit about the problems we ran into. The 450 my son was riding on ended up, he put a stick through the radiator, a sizable branch, I should say, and created a leak. We had to fix that Saturday afternoon, evening. And also, I ran a hook through the rear tire on the Varg, and we just decided to go ahead and replace the rear tire, as I mentioned earlier in the video. Which, by the way, we replaced this with a Tusk Recon tire. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the traction of this tire. It is a little bit of a harder compound hybrid, so it will have a little more longevity. What you're seeing here is that I kind of got off the track there and I put the Varg into reverse crawl mode. And I was able to kind of crawl myself back up onto the track with trying to not having to worry about getting off the bike and kind of pushing it back over or pulling it back over or trying to figure out a way straight forward. It was kind of an opportunity. It wasn't a real pickle there, but to give me a chance to kind of mess around with some of the aspects of the bike. You'll see later on, I end up doing this again, and I was actually in a situation there that it had, you can't tell in the video, but it actually dropped the front wheel, actually both wheels, kind of off the track, and it was going to be kind of hard to pull it back up on the track. And I put it into that crawl mode, reverse crawl mode, and was able to get it back up on the track. Well, I'll talk more about that in a little bit when we get to that point. Again, just out here, I wish I could tell you exactly any names of the portions of the trails we're on here. There was some signage, but I didn't really pay attention to it. My son has ridden in this area before, so I was just letting him lead, and I was just trying to get used to the bike, get used to the trails. Now back to that bike a little bit, saying getting used to it. Yes, one of the things we've done, I've got another video up on my channel that talks about adding the rear brake to the left handlebar. We took the foot brake off, and I fully admit, after many years of riding and having a right foot brake, I did stab for it for a few times off the start, but I am a mountain bike rider, and so I am used to having handbrakes on the handlebars, and all it took was just a little bit of reprogramming, just like being on the mountain bike, and I started to get real comfortable with that rear brake being up on the handlebar. In fact, my son absolutely enjoys it up on the handlebar, and I think there's a lot of advantages to it, especially when you're in a situation that you really want to be gripping the bike with your ankles. I like to say, instead of just with your legs, the lower part of your legs, tight up on the foot pegs, boots tied up against the frame. You don't have to worry about loosening up that grip and moving your foot forward to activate the rear brake. Now, some people do a much better job, I think, of covering the rear brake, but when I try and do that, I find out that I'm activating the rear brake when I don't want to. We'll say my dexterity is not at a pro level, so I always end up having to pull my foot back off the rear brake and then moving it forward. Well, with this left hand rear brake on the handlebar, no more worries about that. Now you say, you don't have a clutch. What the heck? Aren't you going to be pulling on that brake when you're wanting to clutch? You would be surprised. I think that was one of the easiest things for me to get used to not searching for. You just adapt, I think. Most people will adapt so quickly to the rheostat power of that electric motor. Now, first of all, we'll talk about the power and regeneration levels. I'm only running at 40 horsepower, and that was plenty for me. And I'm a big guy, 6'3" and 200 and some pounds that I don't even want to talk about. And I found the 40 horsepower more than adequate for the terrain we were riding. In fact, my son, that's a much better rider than I am, he only goes up to 44 horsepower. He has found more than that, it's just a little harder to control. And he likes to do a lot more technical off-road terrain. So he has found a little less horsepower. He's able to better control the delivery of that power, because as you know, with the electric motor, you get instant torque. You don't have to wait for it. It is there. You start to twist that grip and it's going to start accelerating. There's no bog, there's no pause, there's no waiting for the revs to come up. In fact, in that part, it is astounding. I love that the most. What's a little scary though is that between corners or in sections, you can come out of one corner, think you've got a little straightaway, give some juice to the motor with that right grip, and the next thing you know, you're going a lot faster into the next turn than you really kind of thought you were going to be. The acceleration between sections when it's twisty is just phenomenal. I found myself, I could get in over my head. Thankfully, I was riding conservative and making sure that I didn't get in over my head, and didn't have any oh crap moments in that way. But I could see as you got more used to it, or if you started riding with a fast group of riders, man, you can just really eat up guys ahead of you. You can say, oh my God, look how quick I'm catching him. Oh my God, I got to get stopped for that next turn. Or I'm going to wrap myself around the tree that's at the end of it, because the tree or the terrain has dictated the turn to exist, and you need to make the turn too, or you're going to end up someplace you didn't want to be. AKA, like I said, maybe wrapped around the tree. Well, back to the handbrake situation. I found out once I got used to it, and I did want to come to a stop, my reaction time in grabbing both those brakes was faster than my reaction time in stabbing the foot brake. Now, it took me a while to get there. I admit it wasn't right out of the box, but after I was starting to ride for a while, I found out that I could grab that left rear brake pretty quickly. I think my hand movement's a little faster than my foot movement, and additionally, I could ride covering it where, again, as I said, the dexterity in my right foot doesn't really allow me to ride covering that rear brake. I find that I'm dragging it. So I could cover that left rear brake and my front brake with both hands on the handlebars, and I found it just fantastic. So again, just talking while we're out here riding some of the trails, giving you a little idea of what we were riding in that area in case you get to go out there and enjoy some of the single track. It's pretty attainable, just right outside of Payson. So you can be staying in the Salt Lake City area and make a little trek up here and get on these trails, which my son living in that area is absolutely what he loves. Of course, we're going through a little section here. We had to kind of go over through the bushes. He'd already been on this trail before, and he goes, you don't want to go to the right. This path through the trees to the left is a little better. Just trust me on it, Dad. Again, via the scenic communicators, he was able to communicate that to me, and I was able to take that path to the left. So that was certainly, again, one of those bonus points to the scenic communicators. I can't say enough about how I think they really are advantageous. Unless you're riding with somebody that you don't want to really hear what they have to talk about. Well, what can I say about that? Sometimes our wives ride with us, sometimes they don't. Oh, no, hold it. Did I say that about wives? Okay, it's not just wives. Could be anybody. Anyway, you can see just this gorgeous open meadow here. We were able to kind of pick up the pace a little bit in some of these areas. Again, my son, I'm far from a young cat anymore. My son is quite less than half my age. He was real nice, and he slowed down his pace, make sure that he wasn't just ditching me at every opportunity. The bonus I did have is that he's riding my 450 EXC, and he's not really used to riding it in a single track like this so much, or even in harder terrain. He doesn't really choose to ride it. He has a YZ250 that he's been riding off-road, and then as of late, he's been riding the Stark Varg. Now, weight-wise, compared to that 450, they're going to be pretty similar. But from a capability standpoint, I'll just tell you, it just seems like you can do a lot more with this Stark Varg. Now, I think in here I might have missed it. I think in this section especially, you're going to see some, logs down or kind of large boulders and stuff that I have to loft the front wheel up over. And that's one of the questions that Sam gets from people quite often. What is it like to try and loft that front wheel up when you don't have a clutch? Well, with that instant torque of electric motor, it's really not a problem at all. Again, a little bit of technique has to be developed with a different type of machine that you're riding. Is it going to be just inherently instant that you just know exactly right off the bat what to do? Well, I venture to guess that when you first maybe started to ride off-road and using a clutch, you had to learn how to use the clutch and how to use the technique and use everything together with the throttle to get the front wheel to go up over a log. Well, on the stock Varg, it's going to be a little bit of different technique used, a little bit of retraining, but it's very easy to do. I was within, a couple of days now on the bike, getting it down pretty good of what I needed to do to get that front wheel up. At this end of the video, I'm going to add a video that I took of my son's riding over a downed tree, fairly sizable one, up off the ground quite a bit, and he goes over it pretty easy. He said not as good as he's done it in the past. Of course, as soon as you pull a camera out, then it's never as good as what you've done before. But nonetheless, you'll see that he didn't have any issue with getting over it. There's just many things about this bike that it's a little different, but you're just not going to ride it and go, oh my God, I can't do this. At least I don't think most people are. Human beings are pretty adept to kind of retraining themselves and learning some new things. I think, yes, there's aspects that can be a little bit more difficult to get over. Again, as like we're watching this video and you're not hearing the revs of the motor. I know some people are going to be like, well, I need to know what revs I'm at. I don't know what power I'm at and stuff. Again, there's no gears on this. You don't have to worry about, was I in first gear, second gear? Oh, I need to stab the clutch. Oh, I need to slip the clutch. Well, anyway, coming up here on this section, again, Sam just rode right over this on the Stark Varg, he said, but on my 450, bigger, just a different machine. He said, nah. You can see off to the right as we've been doing this trail, the camera is showing level. This is very steep terrain off to the right side. And he decided that he's going to walk it across because the cost of going down the side of that hill was going to be pretty severe, especially trying to get the bike back up on the trail. So sometimes smarter is much better than braver. So he said, I'm going to walk it down. I started to ride it down. I hide it up, and I'm having having a good time on the Varg and thinking that I'm really getting it under control. And I started looking at it and that tree and the drop off. And finally I said, yeah, no, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk it down too. So I got off the bike and I put it into forward crawl mode. Oh my God. That crawl mode is just so fantastic. Again, this is a rheostat. Your throttle is a rheostat. And they've done a great job of making such a good feel and such a linear feel, even in your normal modes, that once you put it into crawl mode, it doesn't jerk or try and fly out of your hands. You can twist it wide open and really get it to crawl up through a section like that. And it saves energy, it saves trouble, it makes you be able to get back on the bike and enjoy the rest of the ride. Why kill yourself on one little section or potentially injure yourself? And why not have a bike that kind of helps you deal with it? I know we like challenges as human beings, but also sometimes, well, for some of us, the challenges are different. Sometimes the challenges are just getting through the ride without any terrible crashes, without any injuries. Not that, oh my God, did you see how I look like Graham Jarvis on that section? All I'm going to do is look like Graham Jarvis after he hasn't ridden for 15, 20, 30 years. Then maybe I'll look like what Graham Jarvis would look. Probably not even then. Probably is still going to look 10 times better even after he hasn't ridden, maybe when he's 90 years old. Who knows? But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is I'm going to use the benefits of the bike, and that crawl mode is one of them. Again, we're just going through an area here. This was a fire burn area that burned about 7 years ago. You can see some of the undergrowth is starting to come back in. A little bit of the beauty obviously leaves the terrain when you're going through an area of a burn like this, but, well, it's still pretty cool to ride the single tracks. It's still some pretty cool terrain. It may not be beautiful, but if you do, especially you go up into the Northwest and you do like the Idaho BDR, which my son and I have done, Oh my, I couldn't believe how we did mile after mile through burn areas. It's just, the amount of terrain that has been burned is just mind boggling sometimes. So, kind of thinking what else I might be able to say about the ride here. Mostly, I guess, just there's going to be a lot of people. Well, I should say it's hard to qualify a lot. We'll say quite a few that are just going to have a craw up their ass, pardon my French, about it being an electric bike. I've said before, and I'll repeat again. And Stark Varg, the guys that started it, said this wasn't about being green. This wasn't about alternative energy because we're going to save the planet. No, they said this is a viable alternative to building a different bike, to have a different bike in the market that gives us some choices. And I tell you, one thing that was nice was when I rode by those horses, I did not have to worry about the engine or the engine noise startling those horses and hurting those riders. And I'll sum it up as well. What do you think maybe those riders thought? That when I'm riding a bike by that's fairly silent, not some big loud exhaust, that maybe they aren't worried about their horse being startled. Trail walkers that we came across. You know, I know there's a lot of guys with their big street bikes and their loud exhaust saying noise saves lives. Well, guess what? There's still a lot of lives that are being lost on the road on those bikes. So it's not saving all lives. So I think having a loud exhaust has its advantages. There's certain situations like maybe you can hear another bike around you, and that is one of the things here that my son would say that I'd get up right behind him and he wouldn't even realize that I had come up behind him until he turned around and looked. So that's kind of a disadvantage. But I think all bikes are going to have advantages and disadvantages. You can't say exactly that, you know, one particular thing is just a complete negative and there's just no way in heck that could be overcome. Well, I think, again, if you just don't get the craw up your ass about that it's an electric bike, that it is a two-wheel machine that is powered, and you get to go out and ride and really enjoy the ride. Now, if I'm getting this, obviously there's some guys that started to do some of the enduro races. Again, is this bike going to have the battery length to be able to do the long distance rides? No, there's going to be limitations. We came out here, I said in another video, we did about 30 miles of riding, and I used from 70% down to 20%. So I used 50% of the battery on this ride. And that took us 30 miles, so obviously a full battery I think would have got me about 45 miles the way you see that I'm riding. Maybe even a little more because my son says when it's a little fuller on battery, it seems like it goes just a little bit further. And additionally, from a time standpoint, I think we rode from like 9:30 to 1. Now, I'm not out here riding all the time. I'm not in what we'll say really good off-road shape that I'm going to go out and ride single track like this all day long. I'm not going to put in 60 miles. After this 30 miles of single track, and it started to get hot in the afternoon by 1 p.m., it was a good day for me. I didn't have to extend, or I didn't load up the bike going home going, oh my God, I really got robbed today. No, it was a good ride for me. And I think, again, if you're the type of person that you're coming up on a weekend and you want to go, like we met a couple other riders that they had parked where we were at, by the time we got back, they were already done. Not everybody goes out there to ride all day long. Some people, especially when you have access close to you like this, you just want to go out for a few hours. Sam, in his job, actually can get off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He goes in early, gets done early. He has the bike loaded up, and he goes out to ride after work. Oh, here's the end of the video here. So I'm showing where Sam is riding over the log. So anyway, we'll sum this up here. You got to learn a little bit more about the Stark Varg. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And of course, down in the comments section, if you got any questions or anything, I'll see if I can answer them. But at any rate, don't need negative comments. I'm not a content creator. I'm not doing this professionally. And these opinions I express are nothing but my own. They're not right, they're not wrong, they're nothing more than mine. Thank you very much, and be safe in your writing out there.